A scream echoes through the stormy night as heavy rain pours down on a dark, desolate church. Inside, a man coughs weakly, his face bruised and his mouth bleeding from a recent fight. In an instant, his eyes widen in terror as a final, fatal blow strikes his head. A figure in a suit and sunglasses stands over the body, a gun still aimed from the fatal shot. The gunman's hand trembles slightly, a single drop of sweat running down his blood-splattered face, and he stands alone in the aftermath, surrounded by the bodies of those he has just defeated. Suddenly, the sound of a baby crying pierces the silence, catching him completely by surprise. He turns to see a woman in a bloody wedding dress, holding a baby and leaning on a katana. Rushing to her side, the man asks his wife if she is alright after the brutal attack. He kneels down, anxiously asking about their child, and she confirms the baby is fine. But she then reveals a deep wound on her side, saying she has something urgent to tell him. He tries to help her, but she insists it is too late, as her consciousness is already fading. And she gently holds his hand, telling him she has no regrets because they had their wedding, and she says he must have known this would happen and then asks him for a favor. As her first and last request, she begs him to help their child find the life they want to live. With a faint, tearful smile, she tells him she was truly happy to have become his wife. He pulls her close, holding her tightly as she takes her final breath in his arms. Now alone with his wife's body, he kneels and holds their crying child. His expression hardens as he scoffs at the idea of his enemies using a wedding as a trap. He glares at a fallen foe, wondering if they were truly that desperate to draw him out. The fallen man delivers a final curse with a crazed smile, vowing that the agent's son will die by his own son's hand. He adds that once the chairman dies, his son will take over and Agent 101 will face his wrath. The agent listens to the dying man's final words, offering only a simple acknowledgement. Cradling his baby, he points his gun and says he will look forward to that challenge. The scene transitions to years later, showing a modern house under a clear sky. A young boy's voice shouts from outside, complaining about how hard his training is. The agent, now a father, tells his son that they are only just getting started with the workout. The boy complains about running, squats and swimming, claiming it is child abuse for someone his age. His father reminds him that he agreed to a week of hellish training as punishment for hitting his classmates, and so the boy explains he was defending a bullied kid and that the others taunted him for not having a mother. And the father listens to his son's side of the story, his expression hidden behind his sunglasses. He seems to understand the situation and slowly takes off his training gloves. However, instead of comforting his son, he gives him a quick flick on the forehead. He scolds the boy, asking how many times he has told him not to use violence for revenge. And so, the father orders him to get back to hitting the mitts, threatening no dinner if he doesn't meet his quota. And so, the young boy looks absolutely devastated at the thought of not getting any dinner, and his father watches on, knowing that threatening his food is the ultimate motivation. With newfound determination fueled by the thought of food, the boy's eyes light up. He starts punching furiously while his father encourages him to hit the mitts even harder. The father continues to push his son, yelling for more speed and strength as the training continues, and the father announces there are 4 laps left, and the boy screams, straining with effort. He yells that the training is too hard as the view pans up to the clear blue sky. The day's grueling training session finally ends as the sun begins to set. Later, while sitting on the balcony, the son gets his father's attention. As they eat, the boy asks his father what kind of person his mother was. The man is taken aback, asking why his son is suddenly bringing this up. The boy explains that all his friends play with their moms, but he doesn't even have a photo to look at. His father falls silent, a thoughtful and slightly somber expression on his face. He flashes back to that tragic night, then describes the boy's mother as strong, thoughtful, and smart. He adds that she loved him until the very end and was also incredibly beautiful, making his son listen with awe. The young boy cheekily points out that his dad seems to be emphasizing the beautiful part a lot, and the father quickly changes the subject, noting how late it has gotten, and he gets up, telling his son that it is time for him to leave for work. The boy is surprised he has to work on a weekend, but the man says that is when customers are busiest. He then tells his father he should look for a new job, since AI can drive now. The man is momentarily speechless at his son's blunt and cheerful suggestion. He wonders who the boy takes after to say such things, a faint smile on his face. As he leaves, his son happily waves goodbye, still munching on his food, and the father smiles back, thinking to himself without saying a word. He reflects that his son's smile is just like hers. 12 years pass, leading to a flash of intense action. 12 years later, the son is now a powerfully built young man, training with the same intensity. His punches are so fast and strong that they create a brilliant flash of light upon impact, and his father stands by watching his son's progress and stating that the time has finally come. He notes that his son's power has greatly increased and tells him to rest before evening weight training, and the young man is dismayed to hear that there is still more training scheduled for the day. He complains about the constant exercise since he can't be an athlete, but his father says he will soon understand. While his son shadowboxes, the father watches a news report dated March 6, 2039. The broadcast announces the inauguration of Jin Day, Song is the new chairman of the Chando group. The news anchor explains that the new chairman is the grandson of the recently deceased former leader. As the report ends, the father's face is stone cold, his gaze fixed on the television. He picks up his phone, his expression hardening with resolve after hearing the news. He calls out to his son, who is taking a break and drinking from a water bottle. The man instructs his son to get cleaned up, leaving the youth looking confused, and he then cancels the evening training and says they are going out for dinner instead. A bright, happy smile instantly appears on the young man's face at the unexpected change of plans, and so while driving, he mentions that it has been a while since they went out like this. He then asks if they can make it a regular event and go out for dinner again next week. His father quietly agrees, though his tone lacks any real enthusiasm, and he thinks to himself that another dinner out might not be possible if there is a next time. The car continues through the city, heading towards their unknown destination. The car continues its journey, speeding through the dimly lit streets as dusk settles over the city, and the son becomes uneasy, questioning his father's sudden change in behavior in the unfamiliar road. His father remains silent, prompting the young man to check the rearview mirror, where he sees two cars. An overhead view reveals that it is not just two cars, but an entire convoy of black vehicles tailing them. Without hesitation, the man slams his foot on the gas pedal, determined to escape. The car accelerates rapidly, swerving through the streets in a desperate attempt to shake their pursuers. They finally arrive at a large, dark warehouse, screeching to a halt in the deserted area, and the father steps out of the car, his expression serious as he prepares for what comes next. His son follows him out, shouting for his dad, completely bewildered by the sudden turn of events. He begs his father for an explanation, desperate to understand what is going on. The man's gaze falls upon a tactical axe and a knife lying inside a case. He tells his son that every parent has secrets they cannot reveal to their children. He continues, saying he had hoped to explain everything one day, but not like this. Suddenly, the darkness is pierced by the bright headlights of dozens of cars, completely surrounding them. The father steps out from behind the car door, ready to face the overwhelming odds. They are immediately confronted by a group of men in suits, all holding sharp knives, and the son nervously asks who these people are, while his father asks if Chairman Jin sent them. A horde of men in suits and unsettling, featureless masks stands before them in silent formation. The young man looks on in shock, finally grasping the true danger of their situation. The lead masked figure speaks, confirming that events have progressed much faster than anticipated. The masked man explains that with the old chairman dead, the executives need the agent's head to prove their loyalty. He adds that the man should know this, as those in power never forget a grudge. The father listens, his expression hardening as he takes in the words of his enemy. The masked leader specifies that this is especially true when blood relations are involved, and so, with that, the masked assailants charge forward, their blades glinting in the bright headlights, and the son shouts for his dad, but the man stands firm, holding an axe and a knife at the ready, and his knuckles turn white as he tightens his grip on the weapons, preparing for the imminent clash. He then leaps into action, dual-wielding his weapons with deadly and precise movements. In a blur of motion, he cuts down the first wave attackers, moving with inhuman speed. One of the masked men can only stare in disbelief as the agent effortlessly dodges a strike. The father parries a blade with his knife while simultaneously aiming his axe at another opponent. He continues his assault, efficiently taking down every masked figure who gets in his way. Soon he stands over a pile of defeated bodies, a lone warrior against a sea of enemies. The leader watches from a safe distance, admitting that what he just saw was indeed true. He states that the legends about the formidable Agent 101 were all real, and the son watches in horror, completely unable to process what is happening right before his eyes. The masked leader admits that deploying so many men just to catch one traitor was annoying. However, he concludes that seeing the agent's skill firsthand makes the effort worthwhile. The father looks unimpressed, stating that this level of opposition is simply not enough, and so he asks if they really thought they could capture him before lunging back into the fierce battle. The masked man remains unimpressed by the agent's display of skill. He scoffs at the idea that they can be defeated with just this many men, and the father's face contorts with rage as he promises to show the bloodthirsty attackers the true difference in power. The battle resumes with even greater intensity, the sounds of conflict echoing through the night. The agent cuts through his opponents, his movements a whirlwind of deadly precision. He brings his axe down with immense force, relentlessly pushing through the horde of masked men. An attacker tries to block his strike with a hammer, but the agent's strength is overwhelming, and he shatters the man's defense, bringing the axe down on his head without a moment's hesitation. Another assailant attempts to strike from the side, but the agent deflects the blow with ease. He continues his rampage in unstoppable force surrounded by a sea of enemies. Despite the endless waves of attackers, his focus never wavers, his expression grim and determined. He carves a path through the crowd, each swing of his axe and knife finding its mark. The man remains resolute, his face set in a stoic mask of concentration amidst the chaos, and he stands in the center of the carnage, with his son watching, as more enemies close in. The son is still in shock, unable to comprehend the situation or his father's secret life. As he tries to make sense of it all, a masked man with an axe attacks him from behind. Before the blow can land, the father intervenes, swiftly neutralizing the threat. He tells his son Jinai-su that he will explain everything later, but for now, there is no time. He urges the young man not to think about anything and to just focus on one thing. With the enemies closing in, he pushes his son forward, yelling at him to run. The young man is caught off guard, questioning his father's sudden and urgent command to run. The agent expertly blocks an attack aimed at his son, creating a crucial opening for him to escape. He swiftly dispatches another masked enemy, ensuring the path ahead is clear for his son's retreat. Su runs in terror while his father single-handedly holds off the relentless wave of attackers. However, his escape is quickly cut short when another masked assailant appears directly in his path. He looks over his shoulder, a look of shocked disbelief on his face as he realizes he is cornered. But before the man can strike, another masked figure suddenly tackles him to the ground. The two masked men wrestle on the floor, giving the youth another chance to get away. He looks back to see a fresh wave of enemies charging out from a nearby doorway, continuing the pursuit. A familiar yells from inside the warehouse telling Jinai-su to get inside and find cover. He sees his father standing within the building, urgently waving him over to safety. The agent then uses his axe to sever several heavy chains that are holding up a massive structure. The masked men below look up in horror as the steel beams begin to fall from above. The entire structure crashes down with immense force, blocking the entrance completely. Now safely inside, Su looks back at the sealed doorway and wonders if the fight is over. He stares at the pile of rubble and bodies that now blocks the entrance to the warehouse. The young man is still sweating, his mind reeling from the unbelievable chaos and violence, and his father's voice suddenly breaks the silence as he walks up from behind and calls out to him. The man stands before his son, asking if he has been hurt anywhere during the attack. Su nervously replies that he is fine, and his father says they must leave immediately. He points to a door on the opposite side, explaining a car will be waiting at the bottom of the stairs. The father adds that the car is self-driving, so his son just needs to start it while he buys them some time. The young man hesitates, his face filled with worry about leaving his father behind to fight alone. The man firmly insists, his tone leaving no room for argument as he tells the youth to go on. His son falls silent for a moment, his expression showing a mix of fear and reluctant acceptance. The father's eyes glow with intense determination from behind his sunglasses, ready for the fight. As enemies finally break through the barricade, he prepares his weapons for the next onslaught. And so a voice from the enemy leader taunts him, asking if an old rat like him is pulling cheap tricks. The masked figure stands on the rubble, saying he planned to show courtesy but has changed his mind. He now vows to kill the agent in the most painful way possible, his voice cold and menacing. Ignoring the threat, the father shoves his son forward one last time, yelling at him to run now. Su finally turns and sprints away, following his father's desperate command. The agent immediately engages the enemy, blocking a powerful strike from a masked man with his axe. He grunts from the immense force of the impact but successfully holds his ground. Another masked assailant swings a heavy weapon at him, aiming for a decisive and fatal blow. The father unleashes a swift counterattack, cutting through two enemies in a single, fluid motion. He dodges another incoming attack with incredible agility, letting the foe fly right past him. The man then points his finger like a gun, unleashing a small blast of energy at an opponent. He continues his deadly dance, expertly fighting off multiple attackers at once in the dark warehouse. Meanwhile, Isu runs through the darkness, completely confused by the chaotic and violent events. As he runs, the youth thinks that his mind has gone completely blank from the shock. He reaches the exit door, wondering what kind of work his father has been doing all this time. Standing before the door, he questions if they can even survive this, feeling lost and overwhelmed. But he quickly tells himself to get it together, knowing he must focus on surviving for now. And his first goal is to get out of the warehouse and reach the escape car his father mentioned. Just as he is about to open the door, a disturbing memory flashes through his mind, and he freezes. He looks down at his own hand, recalling the sight of his father's blood-soaked hands. The image of a fallen enemy's lifeless, bloody arm is burned into his memory. He tries not to think about it, but he cannot forget how his dad cut people down with the axe. And he wonders how it is possible, questioning who the man he has known his whole life really is. The horrifying thoughts cause him to gasp, his mind reeling from the confusion and fear. He tries to push the thoughts away, desperately wanting to believe his father is not a monster. Meanwhile, back in the main area, the father is surrounded by the masked assailants, and he gasps in pain as two enemies drive their blades through his chest from both sides. Before he can react, another masked man lands a powerful punch directly to his face. The brutal blow sends the wounded agent flying backward, his body crashing to the ground. Su turns just in time to see his father fall, his eyes widening in absolute horror. The agent lies on the ground, critically injured and barely able to move. The leader stands over him, asking why he would resist when there is clearly no escape. Seeing his father defeated, the young man screams his name, his face twisted in rage and despair. The leader reveals that they have already identified and eliminated all of the agent's contacts and escape routes. He taunts the fallen warrior, calling him by his old code name, Agent 101, and so the agent remembers his wife's dying wish, her plea for him to help their child live a life of freedom, and he struggles to his feet, acknowledging that his resistance might seem meaningless now. He recalls telling his son years ago about his promise to protect him and give him a different life. He never gave up on that hope, holding on to the last promise he made to his wife, but now, with his body failing, he knows he can no longer keep that promise. The man accepts that he has reached the end of his road, his expression filled with grim resolve. He pulls out a lighter, vowing to take his enemies down with him. With a flick of his thumb, he ignites the lighter, preparing to end everything in a final, fiery blaze. He throws the lighter towards a large pile of explosive canisters hidden in the warehouse. The masked leader looks on in fury, realizing what the agent is about to do. The man drops his lighter, his final act of defiance, as the flame inches closer to the explosives. He turns to his son one last time, his voice filled with sorrow and regret. The father apologizes to Su for not being able to protect him until the very end. The lighter makes contact with the canisters, and a massive fire erupts instantly. The young man watches in horror, the reflection of the flames dancing in his wide eyes. The entire warehouse is consumed by a violent explosion, a towering inferno against the night sky. Far away, in a high-rise office, two men watch the news of the explosion, one calling the agent crazy. The man in the chair asks for a damage report and is told that every single person, including Agent 101, is dead. And the subordinate wonders if the agent tried to die along with his son. The new chairman disagrees, saying the agent was no ordinary man and likely faked an accident to smuggle his son out. He orders his men to search every hospital thoroughly, adding that simply catching the boy is too easy. He wants to press him slowly and inflict maximum pain to see how much he resembles his father. And the subordinate quietly understands the cruel order, standing in the dimly lit office overlooking the city. A news report the next day confirms an unexplained explosion in an abandoned factory that firefighters are still battling. A news broadcast shows the aftermath, confirming 32 casualties as someone off-screen asks if the patient is awake yet. In a hospital, a nurse tells detectives that the patient is fine but still unconscious. The youth, Su, lies in bed while the nurse explains he has a mild concussion and interrogation will have to wait. The detectives agree and ask her to contact them as soon as the young man wakes up. The nurse then ushers the officers out of the room, insisting that her patient needs to rest. Once the room is quiet, the young man lies still, appearing to be sound asleep in his hospital bed. However, he slowly opens his eyes, revealing he was awake the whole time and thinking about the previous night. He is still clueless about his father's identity and the masked men who attacked them. The entire situation is just too confusing for him to process. A female voice suddenly asks if he was pretending to be asleep after all, catching him by surprise. And so, she notes that his habit of faking sleep is just like when he was little, and he looks at her with confusion. He recognizes the woman, calling her Yahello, as a warm smile spreads across her face. So she corrects his guess of how long it's been, reminding him it has been 12 years, as she is now 23. She recalls he wanted to be a traffic cop, but she says she was originally in traffic before becoming a detective. She explains she got noticed by her captain while she was subduing some troublemakers, and so they laugh while reminiscing about their childhood, remembering when they did taekwondo together. The young man sits up, smiling as he says that despite the pain, those days were fun. The light-hearted mood fades as they both fall silent, the gravity of the current situation returning. Su's expression becomes serious as he asks Yain if she knows anything about his father's work. The detective admits that she does not really know either, her face filled with concern. The youth explains that all he knows is that masked men attacked them, but he has no idea who they were or why. He apologizes, saying he does not have much information to give her for the investigation. She scolds him, clarifying that she is not there to interrogate him but because she is worried, and so, Yain assures him they will not question him until he has fully recovered and promises to visit every day. Her eyes well up with tears as she says she will do anything she can to help him through this. A nurse suddenly opens the door, surprised and excited to see that the patient is finally awake. A scene transitions to the exterior of the hospital as the sun sets, casting a warm glow on the building. Later Yain returns with a bag of takeout food, ready to visit her childhood friend again. And so a nurse at the front desk seems tired, muttering about getting off work as she types on her computer. The detective approaches the desk, and the nurse greets her, saying she can go right in for her visit. Another nurse blushes, noting that Yain has been coming almost every day. A red-haired nurse wonders if she is being too meddlesome, since the two are just acquaintances. However, she cannot help but notice So Yain staring at her with an intense and unusual expression. The detective blushes, worried that she is making the nurse uncomfortable with her strange behavior, and she happily offers him a box of chicken, a gesture of comfort in the bleak hospital room. He reverently accepts the food, but the girl teases him for being more excited about the chicken than her. While eating, he quickly assures her that she is, of course, much better than any chicken. Yain smiles, remarking that his love for food has not changed since they were children, and she wonders if he is just acting cheerful to hide his true feelings while she is there. He admits to himself that without his father, things will be hard for everyone. The young man's smile fades as he acknowledges that everything is still incredibly confusing, and so he thinks that the whole situation feels like a dream, but then the harsh reality suddenly hits him, and a chilling thought crosses his mind as he wonders if the masked men are still chasing him. If they are, he knows he must do whatever it takes to keep So Yain from getting involved. Just then, the red-haired nurse enters the room, announcing that it is time for his IV. He questions the need for an IV, remembering that he was told he did not need one anymore. The nurse stands before him, her face partially obscured by her mask, and he calls out to her. Her eyes suddenly turn a menacing shade of red, a detail he notices with growing unease. His eyes widen in alarm as he senses that something is terribly wrong with this nurse. She pulls a sharp scalpel from her pocket, her intentions now terrifyingly clear. The nurse lunges forward, aiming the deadly blade directly at the young man. He watches in shock as the scalpel comes flying toward his face, his life flashing before his eyes. With a crazed look in her eyes, the nurse screams at him to die. Sue stares in horror, his life in imminent danger from the unexpected and deadly assault. But just as the scalpel is about to strike, So Yain intervenes, knocking the weapon from the nurse's hand. The detective stands protectively in front of her friend, ready to face the unexpected threat. She angrily confronts the nurse, demanding to know who she is and if she is crazy. The nurse responds by launching a powerful kick, but the detective skillfully dodges the attack. Yain retaliates with a swift and powerful punch, striking her opponent squarely in the face. And Sue can only watch in shock, shouting his friend's name as she bravely fights the crazed nurse. The nurse's eyes gleam with a strange intensity as she looks at the detective. She grabs So Yain's arm with surprising strength, a crazed look in her eyes. The detective's own eyes glow with a strange power as she realizes she is in a real fight. The nurse looks on with a mix of shock and confusion at her opponent's sudden change. Yain unleashes a devastating blow, sending the nurse crashing to the floor. The defeated assassin lies unconscious on the ground, her attack completely thwarted. The detective stands over the fallen nurse, catching her breath and wondering if the attacker is insane. She suggests taking the woman to the police station, but the youth quickly objects. He grabs her arm, insisting that they need to get out of the hospital right now. Yain looks at him, a determined and slightly confused expression on her face. He pulls her toward the stairs, and she demands to know what he is doing. She chases after him, asking why he is suddenly running away and reminding him that she is a detective. The young man promises to explain everything later, urging her to just follow him for now. And so knows that if the enemies have come this far, even a detective will be completely useless against them. He knows that if he is facing those guys, So Yain will be in grave danger. As they reach the stairwell door, he tells her to run down immediately, but an enemy is already there, and so a hulking figure grabs the young man by the neck, lifting him effortlessly off the ground, and he struggles in the man's powerful grip, unable to break free from the chokehold. Yain watches in horror, screaming her friend's name as he is brutally attacked, and before she can react, the red-haired nurse recovers and lunges at her with the scalpel once again. Su's face contorts in pain and determination as he fights back against his massive attacker, and so he shouts his friend's name as the nurse pins her to the ground, holding the scalpel to her throat. The youth lands a powerful punch, but it has little effect on the hulking man. The large man scoffs, annoyed that he was sent to catch one small brat, calling his orders stupid. Su's eyes narrow at the mention of orders, his mind racing to understand the situation. And so, the man then asks the nurse for a report, and she gleefully confirms that the two are stuck together, and she calls them a cute pair and decides she has to kill the pretty girl for being so lucky. The nurse prepares to cut So Yain, but a sudden, powerful force stops her hand. The detective's hand stops the blade, her expression now cold and filled with a strange power. The hulking man looks on in shock as the girl's demeanor completely changes. Su unleashes a furious punch, sending the red-haired nurse flying with a single blow, and his eyes glow with a fierce, otherworldly light as he roars at the man to get his hands off of her. He lands another powerful strike, this time on the man holding him, forcing him to release his grip. The young man's voice is filled with rage as he repeats his demand, his power now fully awakened. The hulking man grabs the youth again, his grip now even tighter than before. He sneers, saying he was going easy on the boy, but now he is done playing games. The young man screams in agony as the man tightens his chokehold, his face contorting in pain. Suddenly, a taser dart hits the man in the back, sending a powerful electric shock through his body. So Yan holds the taser, having fired it just in time to save her friend from the giant's deadly grip. The man growls in pain, his body convulsing from the electricity as he stumbles forward. His eyes glow with rage as he glares at the detective, infuriated by her interference. He charges at her with surprising speed, his massive fist ready to strike a devastating blow. The detective stands her ground, bracing herself for the imminent and powerful impact. She watches in horror as the man's enormous fist comes flying toward her face. But before he can land the punch, a fire extinguisher smashes into the side of his head. He grunts in pain and confusion, his attack completely thwarted by the unexpected blow. The two friends stand over the fallen giant, who lies unconscious on the floor. The young man gasps for air, still reeling from the intense fight and the near-death experience. So, Yan asks him who these people are and what kind of mess he has gotten himself into. The youth nervously tells her to just go back, but she is shocked by his suggestion, and he explains that dozens of men like these chased them and killed his father, and now they are after him. Su says he does not want to put her in danger, gently pushing her away. The detective slaps his hand away, angrily asking how he could tell her to do such a thing. She questions if he wants her to just walk away, asking if that is what a police officer does. And so she firmly tells him that this is her job and now is not the time for him to worry about her. And so she promises to arrange for his personal protection and suggests they go to his house to pack so he can stay with her. He tries to protest, but she cuts him off with a sigh, her expression leaving no room for argument. Defeated, he finally agrees, and they leave the hospital, ready to face whatever comes next. Later that night, they arrive at his house, the familiar building now shrouded in an eerie silence. They enter the property, the gate creaking open as they step into the quiet, dark yard. So Yan smiles, remarking that it has been a while since she last visited his house. He agrees, adding that she has not been there since she graduated from school. The young man tells her he will quickly pack and asks her to wait, and she tells him to take his time. The detective sits down at the dining table, waiting for her friend to finish packing his things. As she waits, she calls out his name, her mind racing with thoughts about the dangerous situation, and she admits to herself that even though she acted tough, she is honestly very flustered. She rules out psychopaths or impulsive crimes, wondering what kind of organization would openly try to kill someone. The detective concludes that their coordinated movements suggest a corporate organization is behind the attacks. She remembers Isu's father, recalling a photo of him with the two of them as children. She thinks about how he was unusually obsessed with his son's training since childhood. The man also tried to keep his son isolated, not letting many people get close to him. Suddenly, her phone vibrates in her pocket, pulling her out of her deep thoughts. She answers the call, her eyes widening in shock as she hears the voice on the other end. A panicked voice informs her that the suspect they handed over earlier has disappeared, and so her colleague frantically explains that he left his assistant with the suspect to use the bathroom, and they both vanished. As she tries to process the news, the hulking man breaks through the wall, shattering the glass. The detective looks on in horror, her mind racing as she tries to understand the impossible situation. The man's eyes glow with an eerie light as he sneers, saying that he has finally found her. More figures appear behind him, their menacing silhouettes filling the broken doorway. The girl wonders how they were tracked down so quickly, her mind struggling to find a logical explanation. She screams into the phone, telling her colleague to request backup immediately, and a knife flies through the air, narrowly missing her head and slicing through her phone. The blade lodges itself in the wall, and the red-haired nurse reappears, taunting the detective. She says the girl has to play with them, adding that she has a lot of business to discuss. Su emerges from his room, confused by the nurse's strange and threatening words. He looks on in shock, his eyes wide with fear and confusion at the chaotic scene. More enemies appear from outside, their presence adding to the overwhelming sense of dread. And so the youth wonders how they got there and why there are even more of them now. A new figure emerges, mocking the large man for getting beaten up by a small brat. He scolds his subordinate, saying that this is why he is still at the bottom of the organization. The hulking man clenches his fist in anger, his face contorting with rage at the insult. He grits his teeth, his frustration and anger reaching a boiling point. Su demands to know why they are doing this to him, begging for a reason for the relentless attacks. He catches a piece of his father's torn clothing, a grim reminder of the recent and tragic events. The nurse's eyes gleam with a deadly intensity as she prepares to strike once again, and she lunges at the youth with her scalpel, but he manages to grab her wrist, stopping the attack. He struggles to hold her back, her glowing eyes and superhuman strength making her a formidable opponent. The young man grits his teeth, using all his strength to keep the deadly blade from reaching him. The nurse gains the upper hand, slashing his arm with her scalpel in a swift and brutal motion. He cries out in pain as the blade cuts deep, blood spraying from the fresh wound. Despite the injury, he manages to grab her other arm, preventing preventing her from striking again. He then delivers a powerful headbutt, stunning her for a brief moment and creating an opening. The youth follows up with a strong kick to her stomach, sending her stumbling backward. He grimaces in pain, the adrenaline wearing off as the wound on his arm throbs, and the young man realizes he cannot handle her attacks, especially with her wielding a knife. He remembers his father refusing to teach him knife fighting, a decision he now questions. But just as the nurse is about to lunge again, he remembers a crucial lesson from his training. He dodges her attack, grabbing her arm and using her own momentum against her. The youth grunts with effort, turning her attack back on her with surprising skill. He twists her arm, forcing her to stab herself in the stomach with her own scalpel. With a spray of blood, the blade pierces her side, and she cries out in pain. The nurse stumbles back, a look of shock and agony on her face as she stares at her wound. So, Yan reappears, now holding a gun and declaring that this is as far as they go, and she orders everyone to drop their weapons and put their hands up, her voice firm and commanding. She warns them that if they do not comply, she will not hesitate to use force. But before she can act, the leader shoots the gun out of her hand with incredible speed and precision, and so he taunts her, saying that if they had planned to kill her, they would have used guns from the start. And so he assures her that they have no business with the police, their real target is someone else. The man reveals that their true business is with the young man standing before them. Sue clenches his fists, demanding to know the reason for all of this. The hulking man laughs, mocking his question as if the answer should be obvious. He then lands a powerful punch to the boy's stomach, sending him reeling in pain. The man tells him that he was just born wrong from the very start, a simple and cruel explanation, and so he adds that the youth is nothing more than a toy for the higher-ups in their organization. With another brutal punch, he tells the boy to blame his own parents for his fate. The young man doubles over in pain, the force of the blow leaving him breathless, and he admits to himself that he really does not understand anything that is happening. And so, he questions if all the time he spent training with his father was just for this moment. He wonders if his father left him to face this all alone, feeling a sense of betrayal. The confusion and pain are overwhelming, but one thing becomes clear in his mind. So he knows for sure that he cannot die here, not after everything he has been through. With newfound determination, he prepares to fight back, his eyes glowing with a strange power. As the hulking man prepares to strike again, a strange thought crosses his mind, and so, he wonders what would have happened if he had fought back like this back then. He imagines a different outcome, one where he fought back sooner and with more conviction. A gruesome image flashes through his mind, the memory of his father's violent and haunting him. He sees his father's lifeless hand, a stark and painful reminder of his tragic loss. And so the youth stands over the defeated man, wondering if things would have been different, and he questions if his father would still be alive if he had fought back from the very beginning. He pushes the thoughts away, focusing on the present as he faces the remaining enemies. Two new figures emerge, their expressions cold and calculating as they observe the scene. Sue stands over the unconscious man, his chest heaving as he catches his breath, and he looks at his hands in disbelief, realizing that he has just won his first real fight. Yan suddenly collapses, and he rushes to her side, calling out her name in concern. He sees the wound on her hand and she insists that she is fine and can endure the pain. The new man smirks, remarking that this must be Agent 11's son after all, and he says that like his father, the boy is a formidable fighter, and now he understands why the VIP wants him captured. The youth angrily tells him to shut up, questioning what he could possibly know about his father. The man confidently replies that he knows him better than his own son does, as he is a personal fan. He takes off his jacket, saying he has seen enough of the boy fighting low-level grunts. He admits that the defeated man is a moron, but also his subordinate, so he cannot just stand by. The youth grits his teeth, his expression filled with a mix of anger and determination. He clenches his fists, declaring that he will not just stand still and let them win. The leader smirks, reminding his companion that their orders are to take the boy alive. The leader taunts the young man, saying he will go easy on him. He unleashes a flurry of punches, each one landing with incredible speed and precision. The youth is shocked by his opponent's speed, unable to keep up with the relentless assault. The man's eyes glow with an eerie light as he continues his brutal and overwhelming attack. Sue tries to block the blows, but the man's speed and power are too much for him to handle. He grunts in pain, his body taking a severe beating from the non-stop barrage of punches. Each strike lands with a sickening thud, the force of the blows sending him stumbling backward. He struggles to stay on his feet, his body bruised and battered from the one-sided fight. The leader continues his assault, showing no mercy as he pummels the young man into submission. Sue grits his teeth, his arms crossed as he tries to endure the painful and relentless attack. He collapses to the ground, his body aching as he gasps for air, completely overwhelmed. The man is surprised that the boy is still conscious, noting that even their own members would have passed out by now, and he says he would like to play more, but he does not have the time to waste. He unsheathes a sword, assuring the youth that he is not planning to kill him with it. The man explains that they have to take him with them, so he will not be stabbed if he stays still. He then reveals that their VIP has unique tastes and a special request for them. The leader takes out a phone, saying that the VIP is curious to see his expression when the woman dies. The young man looks on in horror, his face a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. The man mockingly adds that she will probably die from blood loss soon anyway. He looks at the wounded detective, saying he will put her out of her misery quickly. The young man begs him to stop, his voice filled with desperation and fear. The leader laughs, finding his expression perfect for the VIP's sick entertainment. But before he can strike the final blow, the youth lunges forward, shielding the girl with his own body. The man looks on in disbelief, his eyes wide with a mix of shock and confusion. He scoffs at the boy's heroic act, calling him boring for interfering with his plans. The youth grits his teeth, enduring the immense pain of the deep wound in his back. The leader's expression turns to one of annoyance, his patience wearing thin. He furiously reminds the boy that he promised to spare him if he stayed still. He yells at him for interfering, telling him to stay down quietly if he is weak. The man curses, frustrated by the unexpected turn of events and the boy's stubborn resistance. He looks at the deep slashes on the young man's back, realizing the situation has gotten out of hand. He says he was trying to bring him in with all his limbs intact, his voice filled with frustration. But now, he declares that the boy has brought this upon himself, raising his sword to strike. Suddenly 2 axes fly through the air, spinning with deadly and precise aim, and so they narrowly miss the leader's head, embedding themselves in the wall behind him. The man turns in surprise, questioning who would dare to use an axe in a fight. A voice from outside mockingly comments that kids these days have perverted tastes. A new group of people appears, and their leader tells the man to leave and return to the chairman. The newcomers stand confidently, their presence exuding an aura of power and authority. The man's companion angrily questions who they are, demanding to know their jurisdiction. The newcomer states that they are not police, but they know who is spilling blood all over the city, and so adds that the real police will be arriving soon, putting pressure on the chairman's lackeys. The man's words seem to unnerve them, as they know they cannot afford to be caught by the authorities. The leader grits his teeth in frustration, his eyes glowing with a mix of anger and annoyance. He is suddenly attacked by the woman with glasses, her movements swift and her blade deadly. She confidently tells him that they do not lose in fights either, a smirk on her face, and she asks him what he will do now, her tone mocking and her expression smug. And so the leader of the newcomers says that the police are right around the corner. He asks if they will continue to bother the chairman, his voice calm and his expression unreadable. He tells them to think wisely, his words a clear and direct threat. The man curses, frustrated by the newcomers and their confident and calm demeanor. In a fit of rage, the youth lunges forward, his eyes glowing as he lands a powerful punch. The man is sent flying, his face contorted in pain and shock from the unexpected blow. The newcomers watch in stunned silence, their expressions a mix of surprise and disbelief. They stand over the fallen man, the situation having taken a completely unexpected turn. The young man coughs, the adrenaline wearing off as the pain from his wounds returns. One of the newcomers scolds him for being so reckless, calling him a stupid bastard. He complains that he had created a negotiation mood, but the youth ruined it with his impulsive attack. The man sighs in frustration, his patience clearly worn thin by the chaotic situation. He grabs the leader of the chairman's lackeys, declaring that they will retreat for today. The man warns that such shallow tricks will not work a second time as they depart. The newcomers stand silently for a moment, letting the enemies retreat before turning their attention to the youth. The leader approaches, confirming his identity as Jinsong Junsun Isu, and so, he tells the boy that they will protect him and that he should come with them. He adds that in his current condition, he cannot possibly deal with the Jin chairman. One of the women in the group reassures him that an ambulance is on its way for his injured friend, and the young man is still hesitant, questioning how he can trust these mysterious strangers. The leader acknowledges his suspicion, calling him a cautious and intelligent friend. He reveals that he is an old friend of his father's and trusts that he will grasp the situation quickly. The man tells him to decide, as they also need to avoid the police who are on their way. After a moment of thought, the youth agrees to go with them for now, and he asks for a moment before they leave, needing to do one last thing. The scene shifts to a tall modern skyscraper, its windows glowing in the dark night. Inside, a group of men raises their champagne glasses, toasting to the new chairman. They congratulate him on his inauguration, noting that he is the youngest chairman in history. The new chairman smirks, saying it is a shame the old man did not die sooner. One of the men laughs nervously at his boss's dark and inappropriate joke, and so the chairman then tells everyone to enjoy themselves and relax for the rest of the night. An assistant informs him that a video message has arrived from the field agents. The chairman eagerly tells him to play it, wanting to see the face of the captured boy, but the video is not what he expected, and a voice tells him he must be disappointed. The youth's voice continues, saying that the fact the chairman is after his life means he is behind everything. He declares that no matter how powerful the chairman is, he has no intention of dying so easily. The chairman's grip on his glass tightens, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. The young man tells him to look forward to how he will survive and get his revenge, and the chairman's face contorts with rage as he listens to the boy's defiant and threatening words. And so a dark and menacing image of the youth appears on the screen, his eyes glowing with a fierce determination. In a safe house, one of the newcomers complains about the captain's friend's son being there, and so he questions what they are supposed to do with him, his voice filled with frustration. Another member scolds him, saying the captain must have his reasons, but he still complains. He sighs in annoyance, saying that it is like this every single time with their leader. A woman with a confident smirk tells him forget it and handle the situation themselves. She complains that their captain is always doing whatever he wants, then notices something. She realizes that the young man is awake, his eyes open as he lies in the bed. He slowly sits up, his body still aching from the recent and brutal fights. A doctor informs him that his wounds have just healed, so he should not overdo it for a while. The youth looks around the unfamiliar room, asking where he is and who they are. He sees the group of strangers gathered around his bed, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. The woman with the piercing smiles, introducing herself as an old colleague of his father. And so the leader of the group then explains that he is a target of the new chairman and that his father's dying wish was to protect him. The young man's hand tightens on the bedsheet, his knuckles turning white as he processes the information. He accuses the group of being useless, saying they could not do anything when his father was killed. The leader calmly explains that even if they had stepped in, his father was already prepared to die. The youth is shocked, questioning if his father had been planning to die from the very beginning. And so the man reveals that his father had deep grudges against Cheongdo and used his own death to draw their attention. He sacrificed himself to buy his son a little more time, a final act of a desperate father. The leader expresses his condolences, saying that the boy's father was a senior he deeply respected. He then extends an offer, asking the young man if he would consider joining their group. The man explains that their purpose is to control shadow forces like Cheongdo. He adds that if he joins them, he can also get revenge for his father, but the youth immediately refuses. He says that he cannot fully trust them and that he does not have the luxury of thinking about revenge right now. The young man declares that he will handle his own affairs, his voice filled with a newfound determination. One of the men scoffs at his decision, clearly annoyed by his stubbornness and lack of gratitude, and he complains that they even mended his jacket for him, but the youth ignores him. And the scene shifts to a pharmacy, where the young man is paying for painkillers with a credit card. The pharmacist wishes him well as he leaves, the boy's expression grim and his mind heavy with thoughts. He sighs, looking out the city as he contemplates his next move. Now all alone, he holds a bag of medical supplies, knowing it will have to be enough for now. The youth grits his teeth, realizing that he can no longer go to hospitals for treatment. He walks through a narrow alley, thinking that he made a big show of leaving but is now on his own. He admits to himself that he does not know what he should do now, feeling lost and alone, and he looks around, recognizing the unfamiliar neighborhood from a distant memory. The youth wonders if this is Paesudong, a place he has only heard about but never visited. He realizes that this is his first time here, taking in the view of Seoul from this strange new place. He remembers a conversation he had with his father a long time ago. In the memory, a younger version of himself asks his father about the neighborhood, and so, he points to the cluster of buildings, noting how different it looks from where they are, and his father tells him that the place is called Paesudong, his expression serious. He explains that all kinds of bad things happen there and get buried, hence the name. The young boy expresses his fear, saying it would be terrible to get lost in such a place. His father then gives him a piece of advice, his voice filled with a quiet urgency, and he tells his son that if he ever finds himself in a situation like that, he should not trust anyone. And so back in the present, the youth's thoughts are interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. So a group of thugs appears, one of them asking if this is the way the boy went. The leader confirms that a wanted poster popped up when he paid, and he knows he came this way. He orders his men to spread out and search, determined to find the boy and claim the bounty. So, the youth is shocked to learn that a corporation has put a wanted poster on him. He quickly realizes he needs to get out of there, but is already too late. A man with an axe lunges at him from behind, a crazed look on his face, and the youth dodges the attack, his training kicking in as he prepares to fight for his life. One of the thugs spots him and yells for the others to catch him, his voice filled with excitement. The youth turns and runs, the thugs in hot pursuit, determined not to let him get away. He runs in a panic, wondering why everyone in this neighborhood is so hostile. He notices people watching from their windows and balconies, their expressions a mix of curiosity and amusement. An old woman peeks through her blinds, a faint smile on her face as she watches the chase unfold, and so the youth realizes with a sinking feeling that this entire neighborhood is in on it. The thugs coordinate their attack, with some going around to block the alley on the other side. He continues to run, his heart pounding as he tries to find a way to escape the closing trap. He grits his teeth, his expression a mix of fear and determination as he pushes himself to keep going. He reaches a dead end, a tall fence blocking his path and cutting off his escape route. The thugs close in, their leader confidently stating that he went into the alley. The young man picks up a bottle, his knuckles turning white as he prepares to fight fight for his life. He wonders if he can win, but he knows he has no other choice but to fight. He hisses in pain, his wounds from the previous fights still fresh and throbbing. The youth looks to the side, a sudden idea flashing through his mind as he sees a possible escape. A hand reaches out from a nearby window, a silent and unexpected offer of help. The thugs rush into the alley, their leader screaming that the boy is dead. They find the alley empty, their target having vanished without a trace. One of the thugs curses in frustration, questioning what happened and if they were seeing things. The leader tells them to go around the other way, determined not to lose their valuable prize. Inside a dark room, the youth curses his bad luck, his face a mix of frustration and exhaustion. The young boy who helped him cups his ear, listening intently for the thugs outside. He breathes a sigh of relief as the footsteps fade, the immediate danger now past. The youth thanks the kid for his help, grateful for the unexpected act of kindness. He asks the boy if he knows the way out, but the kid just moves some boxes, ignoring his question. The young man wonders if the boy can speak, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. He looks at the silent child, a strange and uneasy feeling growing in the pit of his stomach. He hears the thugs outside, their voices getting closer as they search the area. The youth realizes with a jolt of fear that they are right outside the door. The boy points to a washing machine, a silent suggestion for a hiding place. The man crawls through the hidden passage, the tunnel dark and cramped. He emerges on the other side, finding himself in a strange and unfamiliar place. He stumbles out of the passage, his body etching as he lands on the hard ground. He looks up, his eyes widening in shock and disbelief at what he sees. And he finds himself in a room that looks like a makeshift police station, his confusion growing. He wonders if this is a real police station, his mind struggling to make sense of the situation. And he picks up a wooden bat, his instincts telling him that something is not right. He sees a group of men dressed as police officers, their expressions cold and menacing. The young boy stands beside one of the men, his face now devoid of any innocence. The youth remembers his father's warning, the words echoing in his mind as he realizes his mistake. One of the fake cops praises the boy for a job well done, holding up his phone. He shows the wanted poster, saying that a Cheondo fugitive is a real jackpot. The man dreams of being hired by the corporation, his hand tightening with greed and ambition. And so the youth finally understands that in this city, he is nothing more than weak prey for everyone to hunt. He realizes with a heavy heart that there is no place to hope for and no one to lean on. The leader of the fake cops tells his men to rough him up a bit before handing him over. As they advance, the youth knows he has to make a move, his survival instincts kicking in. One of the men is shocked by his sudden and unexpected burst of speed and energy. The young man lunges forward, his eyes filled with a desperate and fierce determination. And so he knows that he has to struggle to survive, no matter what the cost. The fake cop is enraged, wondering if the boy has gone crazy for resisting. The youth ducks under his punch, his eyes glowing with a strange and powerful light. He knows that if he does not kill them, they will surely kill him without a second thought. He unleashes a flurry of powerful blows, each one landing with brutal and deadly force. The man's face is a mask of pain and shock as the youth's fists connect with his jaw. He falls to the ground, defeated by the boy's unexpected and overwhelming strength. The young man runs to a nearby door, his heart pounding as he tries to escape. He desperately tries to open the door, his hands shaking with a mix of fear and adrenaline. And so the fake cops pound on the other side, their leader screaming that he is dead once they get through. He orders his men to grab the tools, determined to break down the door and capture their prize. And so the young man leans against the door, his chest heaving as he catches his breath. He looks around the dark and unfamiliar room, his mind racing with fear and uncertainty. He curses his bad luck, his frustration and anger boiling over as he faces another impossible situation. He discovers the body of a man on the stairs, a grim and bloody sight. He wonders why this keeps happening, his voice filled with a mix of despair and exhaustion. He kneels on the floor, calling out to his deceased father for guidance, his heart heavy with grief. The thugs from the alley finally arrive, their leader calling for them to hurry. And so, one of the men complains about being called out in the middle of the night, but the leader explains the situation, and he tells them that the boy has locked the door from the inside, a bold and unexpected move. Suddenly a small bomb is thrown through the window, its fuse burning quickly. The men look on in confusion, one of them asking if their chief is okay after the explosion, and they see the body of their leader on the stairs, his life ended by an unknown assailant. The man second in command stares in shock, his mind struggling to process what just happened. He laments their chief's greedy nature, a trait that ultimately led to his downfall. He callously adds that he will take the rice cake, showing no remorse for his fallen leader. He orders his men to search the entire building, knowing the boy cannot have gone far. The youth is shocked by their lack of empathy, wondering what he should do against such ruthless men. He hides in the shadows, his mind racing as he tries to come up with a plan to escape. The men hear footsteps on the stairs, their attention immediately drawn to the sound. One of them screams for the bastard to come down, his voice filled with a mix of anger and anticipation. He kicks a filing cabinet down the stairs, using it as a distraction to buy himself some time. He clenches his fist, his expression a mix of anger and determination as he prepares for the next fight. One of the thugs angrily tells the others to get lost, claiming the boy as his own prize, and so the youth runs through the building, his heart pounding as he tries to find a way to escape, but his escape is cut short as a hand grabs him from behind, pulling him to a sudden stop. The thug sneers, happy to have finally caught his target and ready to claim the bounty, but before he can celebrate, a powerful blow sends him flying, his face contorted in pain. Another man appears, his eyes glowing with a menacing light as he stands over a pile of gas canisters. So he tells the thug not to resent him, as he would have to cut off his arm to prove he caught him. The man then ignites the gas, a fiery explosion engulfing the entire room in flames. The youth looks on in horror, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief at the sudden turn of events. He clenches his fist, his knuckles turning white as he processes the chaotic and violent scene. He is thrown to the ground by the force of the explosion, his body aching from the impact, and so looks up, his eyes filled with a mix of confusion and desperation as he tries to make sense of it all. From a nearby rooftop, the group of newcomers watches the scene unfold, their expressions grim. One of them callously remarks that at least it is one less mouth to feed, showing no remorse. The youth's eyes narrow, a cold and determined look on his face as he processes the words. He remembers his father's last words, his apology for not being able to protect him. He also recalls the newcomer's words, the claim that his father would have faced death willingly. The young man's eyes fill with a newfound resolve, a quiet determination to survive and uncover the truth. The fake cops stand over the young man, their menacing presence filling the small space. One of them wonders what is wrong with him, noting that he has finally gone quiet, and he tells the boy to accept reality, warning him that he will spend the rest of his life running if he escapes. And he adds that even if he survives, the people around him will die, as that is what it means to be targeted by the corporation. And so the youth says he has already experienced that and now knows this was all designed from the start. He looks out at the city, saying that he is trying to accept his current situation. The man scoffs, telling him that he should have realized it sooner. The youth clenches his fist, realizing why he had to go through such harsh training as a kid. He now understands that he was designed this way from the very beginning, and so he concludes that his father knew he could not have a peaceful life and taught him to fight until the end. And the fake cop is enraged by his defiance, his face contorting with a mix of anger and frustration. He orders his men to catch him, and they charge forward with their weapons ready. The youth meets their attack head on, his movements swift and his blows powerful. He fights with a desperate and fierce determination, his body moving with a newfound purpose. He strikes with a brutal efficiency, taking down his opponents one by one. The leader of the thugs is enraged, his face a mask of fury as he lunges at the boy. The youth asks if he thinks they are any different, his voice filled with a cold and steady resolve. The man screams that he will die wherever he goes, unable to understand his own situation. He swings his weapon with all his might, but the boy easily blocks the attack with his bat. The thug looks on in shock, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief at the boy's strength. The young man asks the woman since when she has been following him, and so she says that she has caused enough trouble and that it is time for them to go back. He looks at her with a desperate and urgent plea, asking if he can become stronger. He admits that he has only just realized how ignorant he has been until now, and he clenches his fist, his voice filled with a newfound determination as he makes a request. The youth looks at her with a steady gaze, asking her to teach him a way to destroy Changdo. The thug is shocked by the boy's strength, wondering how he is so powerful. With a powerful swing, he brings his bat down on the man's head, the force of the blow echoing. The thug's eyes widen in shock and pain as he collapses to the ground, defeated. The remaining man stares in disbelief, his mind struggling to comprehend what just happened. He stammers in fear, realizing that the boy is far stronger than he ever imagined. He looks at his fallen comrades, his face pale with a mix of terror and confusion. And so a female voice from behind him says that he looks like a better fighter than she thought. She comments on his clumsy but effective use of martial arts, a smirk on her face. In the city, a voice on the phone tells someone not to worry and to just get some rest. On the other end, police chief promises to catch the guys who attacked a detective. He also says he will look for her close friend. The detective thanks her chief, promising to return soon, but he quickly cuts her off. He insists that while she is at the hospital, she should just forget everything and focus on recovering. The chief then abruptly ends the call, claiming he's busy. In her hospital bed, the woman quietly agrees. After hanging up, she lets out a heavy sigh, her expression filled with worry and exhaustion. She looks down at her phone at the contact for someone named Jinai Su, wondering where he could be. Meanwhile, back at the station, the chief shows a colleague a shocking photo of a bloody crime scene, revealing that police officers were killed. He explains that the autonomous police in that area are basically a gang. His colleague points out that 5 officers still died and weapons were used. The chief dismisses his concern, telling him they are not getting involved with that neighborhood even a little bit, and he orders his subordinate to pass the case to another team or postpone it, leaving the younger officer looking defeated. And so elsewhere, a young woman stands on a rooftop at night, asked if she has a way to bring down a group called Cheongdo, and she looks back with a faint smile, confirming that is the very reason they have all gathered together. However, she admits she hates training rookies but has no choice since it is a direct order from her captain. She then turns to a young man with blue hair, confirming his name is Jin Isu, and he quietly affirms it. The woman introduces herself as Yu Ji Min, extending a hand. She tells him they can talk more once they get back. A voice off-screen notes that he seems to have changed his mind, and Jin Isu quietly agrees, and the young man looks up with firm resolve, declaring he will do anything to bring down Cheongdo and Chairman Jin. An older man with a prominent scar across his face watches him with a silent, serious expression. He then reveals that both he and Jin Isu's father were once Cheongdo agents, adding that his father was a true legend. The man explains that the voices of innocents who died because of Cheongdo haunted them. This doubt led him and the youth's father to stand against them, and so a red-haired woman with glasses sips her drink, adding that they have been fighting ever since, carrying on that same will. The captain tells the young man that if he wants to stand against Cheongdo, he must adapt quickly, as they cannot protect him in a real fight. So with a determined expression, the youth sweats slightly but confirms that he is prepared for the challenge ahead. The scarred man then properly introduces himself as Baek Jian. Beside him, Yu Ji Min reminds the boy of her name as well. Another man named Wang Jin happily introduces himself, followed by the red-haired woman Go Na, who cheekily calls the newcomer cute. Finally, a man holding a tablet is introduced as Li Yong Hyan, who is both a doctor and an engineer. The team calls their leader captain. The doctor checks his device, announcing there are 30 minutes until 9 p.m. and that their targets will be moving soon. And so the captain then gives the order for everyone to move to their positions at the designated location for the mission. He specifically tells Isu to follow him, and the young man agrees with a hint of nervousness in his voice. A digital map reveals Cheongdo's influence. The organization already owns 10 of Seoul's 25 districts and is aiming to expand further. From a rooftop, the youth questions their motives. He is told their goal is not just influence but to create an actual country. The captain explains that his father convinced the previous chairman to stop the expansion. The current one, however, is intent on building his nation. He continues, stating they do not buy cities at high prices. Their strategy is to acquire them cheaply and then inflate their value. And so as they watch the city below, a voice on the comms informs the captain that the target's vehicle has been spotted. He then turns and hands a large, covered object to the young man standing beside him on the rooftop. And so, the captain explains that his equipment his father used and that he believes the youth should now be the one to use it. With a look of gratitude and determination, the young man accepts the gear and offers his sincere thanks. The captain instructs him to watch carefully to understand how their enemies operate to achieve their goals. Together, they look down from the building, their eyes fixed on a single black van driving on the street below. And so, the black van speeds through the city streets at night, its headlights cutting through the darkness as it heads toward its destination. So inside the vehicle, one of the thugs questions their mission, wondering why they are involved in this particular situation. Another member complains, asking why they are messing with their own territory even if their boss ordered it. He says it is all their turf money. The leader of the group smirks, explaining that a big corporation pays them to scare the locals, comparing the easy money to slaughtering cattle. One of them gets excited but his superior quickly tells him to shut up and stop being curious if he values his life. The van finally pulls up and parks in a dark alleyway, the engine shutting off as the occupants prepare to move. With a powerful kick, one of the men shatters a door, making a loud and violent entrance into a building. The leader of the thugs and his crew walk into what appears to be a bar, demanding to know who Kim Sang-bong is. The establishment is calm, with a few customers and staff going about their business, unaware of the impending chaos. A young man wearing an apron steps forward from behind the bar, identifying himself as Kim Sang-bong's son and asking what they want. The intruder approaches him, confirming he is the building owner's son before asking where his father is, and the son looks at him sternly, stating his father is not there, and telling the man to come back another time. The thug's expression darkens, a sinister look appearing in his eyes as he hears the young man's defiant response. Without warning, he violently slams the son's head down onto the bar, showing no hesitation. The leader then shouts for his boys, and his crew responds with a resounding hiss, ready for action. Chaos erupts as the thugs begin terrorizing the patrons. One of them grabs a screaming woman, while another smashes things. Another member of the gang grabs a man by his shirt, angrily asking what he is staring at before striking him down. Suddenly, a man appears from the back, shouting for them to stop and revealing that he is the Kim Sang-bong they were looking for. The leader holds the injured son by his hair, smirking as he tells the father that he is finally crawling out. Outside, the rest of the crew waits by the van as another member runs toward the bar, likely to join the fray. One of the thugs waiting outside the bar spots someone trying to run away and calls out to them. A mysterious man in a yellow jacket steps out from the shadows, calmly asking if they are part of the Red faction. So he then adds that he is not from the area, questioning who they are with a composed demeanor. The two thugs are taken aback by his audacity, wondering what is wrong with the stranger who just appeared. The man in the jacket simply remarks on their violent way of speaking, seemingly unimpressed by their aggression. He then crouches down, casually stating that a person should always try to speak nicely to others. Losing his patience, the blonde-haired thug charges forward, ready to attack the mysterious figure. But in an instant, he is sent flying backward and knocked unconscious, leaving his companion completely stunned. The stranger finishes his sentence, explaining that one must speak nicely for nice words to come back in return. The remaining thug looks on in absolute terror, his eyes wide with fear as he tries to comprehend what just happened. Before he can even move, Eugene Min appears in a blur of motion, swiftly and brutally taking him down, and she stands ready with her blades drawn, calmly stating that what the thugs are experiencing is nothing more than karma. The fight spills onto the street, causing civilians to scream and run away in panic from the sudden gang violence, and a surviving thug confronts the newcomers, angrily demanding who they are and warning them they are messing with the Jiaoxapa gang. And so, he belligerently shouts that his group are the undisputed kings of this neighborhood, and that they should be feared. However, both Yu Jai-min and her companion appear completely unimpressed by his loud and empty threats. The thug continues to shout that they are all dead when his bosses find out, but he is suddenly cut off. Jin Ai-su appears, bringing down a heavy axe while commenting on how sloppy their fighting form is. Meanwhile, inside the bar, the owner's son is bleeding heavily, weakly begging his attackers to stop. The gang leader sits casually, telling the owner to just stamp the papers and not make things so hard on himself. The injured owner protests, coughing as he explains how hard he worked for the building. He says the offered price is less than 3 months' rent. The gang leader simply smirks at his defiance, remarking that he supposes the man still has some fight left in him after all. At his signal, one of the thugs raises a metal rod over the owner's head, ready to deliver another brutal blow, and he swings the weapon down with a furious yell, intending to break the man's spirit completely. And suddenly a new group of imposing figures walks in. One of them comments on how gangs these days do not even bother to hide their activities. The captain steps forward, demanding they take him to their boss. He promises to let them live if they comply. The thug leader is stunned, asking who this intruder is and what turf he is from to be barging in like this. And so, one of his men, a shirtless thug with a knife, grins menacingly, remarking that it looks like a lot of people are going to die today. However, Go-na steps up to her captain, confidently asking him to let her handle the situation. She draws a long blade with a smile, adding that she has been wanting to try out a new knife anyway. Enraged by her nerve, two of the thugs charge forward, one of them raising a small axe to attack her. Her glasses gleam in the dim light as she calmly prepares to face their reckless assault. In a flash of red light and flying blood, she effortlessly cuts down her two attackers in a single, fluid motion. Watching from the side, Jin Ai-su's amazed by her skill, noting how she cut off all his limbs in one swift go. Go-ha. Nai examines her blade, muttering to herself that the cutting does not feel as good as she thought and wonders if she got ripped off. The remaining thugs, sweating nervously, yell at her to stop mumbling and to bring it on if she dares. Her eyes glow with a menacing red light as she turns to them, coolly asking if they are really talking to her, and she stands over them, questioning if they have still not figured out the dire situation they are in. The lead thug's face contorts with confusion and sheer terror, finally realizing he is completely outmatched, and so with another swift movement, she cuts them down, declaring they are not even good enough for her practice. The gang leader lets out a final scream of agony as he collapses, his body convulsing on the floor of the bar. Go-ha. Na stands over him with her sword, confirming he is the highest ranking member and stating she has business with him. Terrified, the man can only stammer, his eyes wide with fear as he sweats profusely, unable to comprehend his defeat. Suddenly, a strange mark on his neck seems to activate, followed by a sharp, electronic sound, and he screams in agony, foaming at the mouth as he claws at his throat, a clear sign that he has been poisoned. Even Go-na looks slightly taken aback by this sudden and gruesome turn of events, watching him die. The scene then shifts to a bright, sunny day in the bustling city, moving away from the dark events in the bar. Inside a car, an executive curses under his breath, complaining about a kid bossing him around just because he is the new chairman. He angrily questions what a rich brat could possibly know about the real world, while his subordinate tries to calm him down. The executive continues to fume about the chairman's stupid business ideas, but his companion offers a cunning suggestion. He proposes leaking the secrets of the expansion project to the press, since the new chairman has not yet established any real power connections. The executive's anger turns to intrigue as he considers the idea, realizing it could be a brilliant way to undermine his new boss. Elsewhere in a high-tech control room, a man stands before a wall of monitors displaying data and maps. A close-up reveals he is wearing a small, discreet earpiece, listening intently to a transmission. He touches the device in his ear, responding with a simple and obedient "West, Chairman." Back with the team, they examine the dead gang leader, discovering a poison capsule in his mouth. Their doctor explains that he found the capsule hidden inside an artificial tooth, which also contained a signal receptor, and he points to the mark on the man's neck, revealing it as another receiver that can also function as a listening device. The doctor concludes that the poison could be triggered remotely if anything suspicious was overheard. The captain notes only the leader had it. The captain deduces that since the Jeoksap is a rookie gang, their powerful backers, Cheongdo, are likely behind this advanced technology. The captain orders Jae Min to take Su and cover Sinchon the next day. He adds that Jeoksapa members will be moving there too, much to her surprise. She questions having to take the rookie. He explains that brute force did not work and she needs to teach the new guy how to properly secure a target. He continues that the other three will handle a different area, attacking from all angles. The captain also reminds the doctor to remove the receiver. Min groans loudly about her job stress, clearly annoyed with the new assignment, while Isu stands quietly behind her. The next day, the sun shines down on a dilapidated neighborhood where a large protest banner hangs between two utility poles. Looking around the unfamiliar and rundown area, the young man turns to his partner and asks where they are. She explains that this is where the evictees live. Cheongdo pressures them by cutting off their water, electricity, and infrastructure to drive them out. She adds there is no compensation for redevelopment. The company simply makes the area unlivable so people are forced to leave. Looking determined, she concludes that today, the Jeoksapa gang is coming to finish off the last remaining residents. That the youth is shocked by the ruthless tactic. His companion reminds him their mission is not to interfere, but to capture the executive, and she sternly warns him not to let pity cause him to fail their objective. They decide to wait, as the action will not start until later. As the sky turns orange with the setting sun, the residents gather in the street, armed and ready to defend their homes, and a dark vehicle pulls to a stop on the street, signaling the arrival of the force sent to clear out the neighborhood. One of the residents, wearing a red headband, watches with a grim expression as their opponents begin to gather. The doors of the van open and several hired thugs in suits step out onto the street, ready to begin their violent work, and so the leader of the thugs orders his men to clear out all the evictees, while the residents rally their own people to fight back. One of the defenders sharpens his axe against a pipe, creating a shower of sparks as he prepares for the impending battle. The conflict erupts in brutality as one of the hired thugs sets a resident on fire, filling the air with screams of agony. One of the enforcers casually suggests they clear the area out fast so they can go and grab some dinner afterward. He then points out a redhead among a group of larger men, identifying him as the executive, their main target. From their hiding spot, the woman instructs her partner, they are to stay out of the fight and focus only on capturing the executive when security loosens, and she explains the plan. She will take out the guards, he will grab their target, and they will leave quickly. The youth seems distracted by the chaos, and his attention is caught by a mother desperately holding her crying child, begging the aggressors to leave them alone. One of the residents raises his weapon, screaming that he warned her to get out before swinging down towards her and the child. Watching from the sidelines, his partner realizes this has crossed a line. She decides she has to deal with it from a distance. Her eyes narrow with intense focus as she prepares to intervene and stop the man from harming the innocent woman and child. But before she can act, the youth rushes in, taking the brutal blow himself. She curses him for being an idiot and ignoring the plan.